In my previous video, I started a series on how to sew a safari suit, in which I walked you guys through the process of materials needed in constructing a safari suit, and we ended that video with a demonstration of cutting out the fabrics using the patterns we drafted in the safari suit drafting video. In case you haven't seen those two videos, which are how to draft a safari suit and detailed introduction to the materials needed, I will leave a link in the description area below for you guys to access the videos. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time of watching my video, this is Regi School of Fashion. In today's video, we will proceed in the construction of a safari suit, in which I will be showing you how to cut out the lining, how to cut out the front facing, how to pick the front darts, how to cut out the back darts, and lastly, the easiest way of constructing and attaching a utilitarian pocket to the safari suit. Consider subscribing to my channel for regular notifications so that you won't miss out whenever I upload a new video. And in case you are interested in joining my membership forum here on YouTube, kindly smash the join button below the subscribe button on your mobile phone for more info. My name is Bolaji and this is Regi School of Fashion. After cutting out the front and the back panels on the fabric, the next step is to cut out the lining. In cutting out the lining, I placed the back panel. Here is the back panel I cut out in the previous video. So I placed the back panel on the lining, folded into two. Then I cut it out the exact way I cut out the fabric. Okay? But the only difference is the length of the lining. You can see what I'm having here. I made the lining shorter than the main fabric by 1 inch. And what I did is to measure 1 inch on the lower part of the fabric, and I folded it inward and pinned on that point like so. So this is all you need to do. Mark 1 inch on the lower part of your fabric. So with this, you will make sure the 1 inch points align with the point of the lining. So that is how I cut out the lining. So aside this, there is no difference. I have the same thing together with the lining. Okay, so this is for the back panel. And after cutting out the lining, I transfer all the notches I have on the fabric to the lining as well, because the lining and the fabrics are going together, so they must be equal aside from the length. Okay, but for the front panel, I did not cut out the lining of the camera. So this is because it is going to be a little bit different from the back panel, in which I will be showing you into details. In cutting lining for the front panel, I will have to separate the pattern from the fabric, which I have done, as you can see. Okay, so after which I will have to turn my pattern to the other side. So I don't want to make use of this side of the pattern because it's busy already and I don't want you guys to get confused. So that is why I will be making use of the other side. So here is the center front of the pattern. This is the side of the pattern. This is the neckline. This is the shoulder line. This is the armhole, and this is the hemline. Then on the hemline from the center front, I will measure 5 inches towards the side, like so. From the center front, that is from the edge of the pattern paper, not from the center front line. From the button allowance point, I will measure 5 inches. Okay, so then from this 5 inches point, I will extend this upward to the shoulder line. So I will position this in such a way I will have a perfect straight line. So you don't need to bother yourself on the point it falls on your shoulder line. Just make sure the line is straight. So that is all you need to do. Then I will be drawing a straight line upward. After drawing out the line, then I will be cutting on the line. Okay, so now I have the front panel cut into 2 pieces. So this is the side and this is the center. You can see this is the way the pattern was initially before I cut it out. So you can see what I have. So this is the side and this is the center. Why do I need to do this? This is because the inside of the safari suit at the front is not going to be lining all through. It's going to be part of the lining and part of the facing. So that is why I have to cut this into 2. So the part of the pattern that falls at the center front is what I'll be using in cutting out the facing. So this is what I will be using in cutting out the facing, and I'll be using this to cut out the lining. Now I've pinned the patterns together with the fabric. So this is the part that is going for the lining. You can see that is the side of the pattern, and this side will be the facing. I'm using this to cut out the fabric. So this is the center front. Okay, also after pinning the patterns together with the fabric, don't forget this pattern is without seam allowance. So I need to add my seam allowances all around the pattern, just the way I added it on the fabric. I added 1 inch by the side of the pattern, on the arm area 1/2 inch, on the shoulder line 1/2 inch. Then at the center in which I opened the pattern, I added extra 1/2 inch. So this is the seam allowance I will be using in joining the lining together with the facing, 1/2 inch at that center. Then at the lower part, if you remember, I added 1 inch for finishing the hem line on the fabric. But in the case of the lining, I did not add extra 1 inch because I want the lining to be 1 inch shorter than the fabric. Then on the facing as well, I added 1/2 inch of seam allowance around the neckline. Then at the center in which I open up the pattern, I added 1/2 inch downward. So that is all. I did not add at the lower part. This is because this will also be 1 inch shorter than the fabric, because this is going together with the lining. So I can proceed in cutting them out. At this side also, I have a little part of the shoulder line at this side. So I added 1/2 inch on that side as well, upward. So that is why I'll be cutting on this line. So immediately after cutting this out, I will be placing my notches just the way I did on the fabric. So here is the shoulder line. I will place my notches. So here is the shoulder line. Okay, and at the upper parts here, so that is the button allowance point. This is where the center front starts. So I'll place my notches at the upper part and at the lower part. Okay, so then I'll proceed in cutting out the lining. So don't forget, this has to go in pieces. I will open this up after removing my pattern. So now I've cut out the lining for the front panel and the facing, as you can see. So these two will be going together like so. You can see here is the center I opened. So I will be joining the two together with the seam allowance I added. So after cutting this out, the next step is to cut out feasible interfacing for the facing. So here I will be making use of my cutting fusible interfacing, and this will be folded into two as well, and I'll place the fabric on it like so. So I'll be cutting this out the same way. So it's going to be the exact way I cut out the facing. So you can see what I have like so. Then I will remove my pattern. So after removing my pattern, I will use this fabric as a template to cut out the fusible interfacing. So now I've cut out the fusible interfacing and I will be separating the two. So you can see I still have the side folded, so I will have to open up the two sides. I'll be opening up the center of the facing and the center of the interfacing. Now I have the front lining cut out, the front facing and the fusible interfacing. Okay, so the next step is to fuse the fusible interfacing to the facing. So here is the lining. So I'll put this aside. I'm still coming back to this. Then I'll separate these two like so. So I'm going to fuse this on the wrong side. You can see I chalked the wrong side of my fabric. You have to do this, most especially if you have the same look for the wrong and the right side of your fabric, just like mine. You can see the right and the wrong side have the same look. So I have to choose one side to build the wrong side. So here is the wrong side you are seeing. And on the fusible interfacing as well, it has the right and the wrong side. The right side is the shiny side. So this is the side that will glue together with the fabric. And you can see this is not working for this. So definitely this will be for this. You can see that. So this piece will work for this. So when you are cutting, make sure you are cutting right side facing the right side. So maintain that method of right side facing the right side on every fabric you are cutting, the lining, the fusible interfacing. So with this, you will not have the issue of one side not matching each other. So this will be applied to the fabric with heat. So I'll be applying it on this in order to glue the fusible interfacing together with the fabric. So I'll be doing this and I'll be back to show you the next step. Now I have my fusible interfacing glued together with the fabric, as you can see, like so. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. Okay, so the next step is to construct the front lining. You can see I have this as the lining, I have this as the facing. So now I will be turning this to the right side like so. This is the center I cut out, and on the lining also I have the center I cut out. So I will pick one of the lining, then attach it together with one of the facing, and the other side of this together with this, like so. Then I will be joining the two together with the half of an inch I added when I was cutting it out. So I will stitch from the hem line downward to the shoulder line, from the hem line to the shoulder line on both pieces. Now I'm joining the facing together with the lining. Okay, and the position is right side facing the right side. Now I'm done joining the pieces together, and the next step is to open the seam allowance like so, and I will give it a good press. So I'll open it up like so and give it a press on both pieces. Then I'll be back to tell you the next step. Now I've opened up the seam, as you can see, so the front lining is ready. So the next step is to pick the dart. So in picking the dart, I will start with the back panel. Now this is the back panel pattern, and as you can see, I have the dart plotted on the pattern. Because of the design of the safari suit I'm making, I will have to cut this out, and in cutting out a dart, it has to be connected to either the shoulder line or the armhole. But in this case, I want to connect the back dart to the armhole point. So that is why I will be moving the dart a little bit closer to the armhole area. All I'll be doing is to mark out the center of the back, so which is here. Okay, so this is the center back plus half of an inch, and what I have here is the vent allowance. Okay, so from the center of the back, which is here, I will measure 4.5 inches. Or better still, in order not to get confused, firstly I will mark half of an inch. That is the half of an inch I added as joining allowance. You can see, so this is the half of an inch point. On the hemline as well, I will insert same half of an inch. Then I will connect the 2 points straight down. So in taking the measurement for my dart, I will start from this half of an inch point. Okay, so the measurement is 4 inches. 4 inches. From this point, I will measure 4 inches forward. So this is the real center back of my back panel. So here is a 4 inches point, and if you have been following me, you will know our dart intake is 1 inch, and I added the extra 1 inch when I was drafting the pattern. So from this 4 inches point, I will measure 1 inch, which is here. Then I will get the midpoint. Okay, then on the end line as well, I'll be repeating the same process. 4 inches, 1 inch dart intake, then the midpoint. Now with the help of the notches I have on my fabric, I will be able to indicate the waistline. And also the chest line. So here is the chest line. So that is why it is necessary for you to place your notches. So with the help of your notches, you will be able to indicate those points easily. Okay, so from the center back, I will just extend this outward a little, not all through. Make sure you are doing this on the wrong side of your fabric. Okay, so on the chest level as well, I will mark in half of an inch. So that's the same allowance. Then from the half of an inch point, I will mark my 4 inches. After 4 inches, I will mark 1 inch. Then I will get the midpoint. So all I'll be doing is to connect the midpoints together like so, and I will have a perfect straight line. Okay, then I'll be connecting this point to this point. So that is the side point. Like so. Okay, then on the chest level, I will not be extending the dart to the chest level. I will have to move the dart away from the chest level. So I'll be coming down by 2 inches. This can be between 2 inches and 2.5 inches. Then I'll be connecting this point, which is a half of an inch point, to the 2 inches point, like so. Okay, so what is left is to connect my dart to the armhole. So in connecting the dart to the armhole, I will take the measurement I have for the armhole. So when taking this measurement, please take note of this. I'm not going to start from the shoulder line point because part of the front panel is together with the back panel. So I will be starting at the midpoint of 4 inches, which is here. Okay, this is the midpoint of 4 inches. So I will be taking the measurement from this point and I will get the midpoint. So here I have 11.5 inches, and out of this 11.5 inches, I have 2 inches by the side as seam allowance, which is here. So that's the 2 inches point. So which means I'll be taking the measurement again from the 2 inches point to the midpoint. So here I have 9 inches, and the middle of, and half of 9 inches is 4.5 inches. So here is a point. Then I will take my armhole ruler and I'll be connecting that midpoint to the chest point, so which is around this point. So any point from here to this point is where you can place your ruler. But please take note of this, it must be a slight curve. So it should not be too curvy because it is a male wear. So I'm having mine like so. Then I will blend it up like this. So you can see what I'm having. Okay, so now I have my dart connected to the armhole. So with this I can proceed and cut out the dart. Now I have my dart connected to the armhole and I will cut out the dart. And if you are wondering if the dart will not affect the measurement, it will not affect the measurement because I've added the dart allowance and I've added the seam allowance in which I will be using in joining the two sides together after cutting it out. So now I have my 2 pieces for the back panel and I have the lining as well together with the fabric. So for the sake of accuracy, I will be cutting the 4 pieces together at the same time. So now I've cut out the side of the fabric and I'll be cutting out the remaining parts of the dart. Okay, so after cutting it out, I have something like this. So you can see what I have. So by the time I join this together, I will have it back as a single piece. The essence of adding that to a safari suit is to help the shape of the suit to come out properly, because this is totally different from a native shirt. So the shape has to come out beautifully and the suit has to stay well on the body. So that is the essence of adding a dart. And as I said earlier, you can either pick your dart or cut out your dart. Anytime you are cutting out your dart, remember to add the extra value you will be using in joining the 2 pieces together. Now it's time to plot the front dart. Here I have 2 pieces for the front panel and the notch point is the center of the front. Okay, so that is why it is very important you place your notches, as I've been saying it. Okay, now I'll be drawing out my center line before plotting the dart. So this is the center front line, and this side is for the button allowance, just the exact way I have it on my pattern. Okay, now because we have shifted the dart positioning of the back panel, and the dart positioning has to be the same for both front and back, I have to shift the dart positioning for the front panel as well. That is number one. Number two is the dart I'll be having on the front panel will not be cut out. I will be picking the dart. Okay, so which I'll be showing you right now. So the next step is to get the waist point, which is here. Then I will draw out the line. I will make sure I have a perfect straight line on the waistline. Okay, I have the notch points on the center front as well, so this will help me to achieve my perfect straight line. So now I have the line drawn out on the waistline. Okay, so in this case I will be plotting the darts on the waistline. I use 4 inches for the dart intake, for the dart point rather. I use 4 inches for the dart point, and the dart intake is 1 inch, and I got the midpoint of 1 inch, which is here. Okay. Then I'll come to the chest level, draw out a straight line on the chest level as well with the help of the notch. So please pay a closer attention at this point, because the front dart is usually different from the back dart. Okay, then I will take the measurement I have from the center front to the midpoint of the dart. So that should be 4.5 inches, and I'll be placing 4.5 inches on the chest line. Like so. Then on the hem line of the shirt of a safari suit, I will be placing the same 4.5 inches. So with this I will have a perfect straight line. Okay, then from the chest level I will be taking this down by 3 inches. Don't forget, when I was plotting the dart for the back panel I used 2 inches, but in this case, because this is the front panel and also I'm not cutting out the dart, I'm picking the dart, it will not look nice if it is very close to the chest level. So I'm moving it downward by 3 inches, which is here. So this is going to fall around the bust point. Okay, so after that, at this point I need to insert the hip level measurement. That is the distance between the waist and the hip. And for the measurement I'm working with, distance between the waist and the hip is 5.5 inches, which is this point. So from this point I will come up by 2 inches. So this point is the hip level, then I will bring it up to 2 inches. I'm going through this process because I'm not cutting out the dart. When we are picking your dart, it cannot start from the hem line and stop on the chest level, or start from the chest level and stops on the hem line of the suit. It will look odd, it will not look nice. Okay, so from the hip level I came up by 2 inches. From the chest level I came down by 3 inches. Okay, so this point, so which is the half of an inch point I have on both sides, will be connected to these 2 inches points, like so. Okay, then I'll be connecting this same point to the 3 inches point I have below the chest level. Like so. Okay, so you can see I have my darts plotted on the front panel. Then I'll be repeating the same process on the second piece of the front panel. Now I've plotted the darts on the 2 pieces of the front panel. So this is what I have on the other side. So the next step is to pick the dart. In picking the dart, this has to be done on the wrong side, and I'll fold the center line like so. Okay, I will make sure my fold falls on the center. Then I will secure this with my sewing pin. Okay, so after pinning this, I will pin the second piece as well, and I will take this to my sewing machine. I will stitch from this point, which is above the hip level point, and I will stop on the 3 inches point I have below the chest level. Okay, so after picking the dart, I will have something like this on the right side. Can you see what I have? The dart is going to fall at the center of the front panel. And now to the back panel, I will be separating the fabrics from the lining. Okay, so I have 2 pieces for this side and I have 2 pieces for this side, both on fabrics and lining. Okay, so now I'll be marking half of an inch of seam allowance on this dart line. You can see this is the shape I cut out for the dart. So I'll be taking half of an inch from this point. So I'll be taking half of an inch from the hem line. I'll bring it up to the chest level, but on this edge, which is part of the armhole area, I will pick 0.25. So that is 1/4 of an inch. So let me mark this on my fabric so that you guys can see it clearly. This is the side of the back panel and this is the center of the back panel. So from the hem line, I will mark half of an inch upward, and when I get to this point, you can see the marked point, that is the chest level. I will pick 1/4 of an inch from here, then I will connect the point together. So from this point, I'm marking 1/4 of an inch like so. 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, but here I will mark half of an inch. So that is the chest level. I will mark half of an inch and I'll be connecting the point together. Okay, then from the chest level point downward, I will maintain the same half of an inch. You must mark your seam allowance and make sure you follow the shape you have on your fabric. Okay, as I've marked this side, don't forget I have 2 pieces here. I will be marking the other piece as well. I used 1/4 of an inch around the armhole because I don't want to have much of curve around that side, because this is a male suit, safari suit. This side must not be too curvy, so that is why I used 1/4 of an inch. And in case you are wondering if we will not be having an excess around here, when I was adding my seam allowance, I do not add extra seam allowance to this area, to the armhole area for attaching this. This is because there's usually an excess around the armhole. So with this 1/4 inch I'm picking, 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here, I've taken 1/2 inch away from the armhole measurement. So this will remove the excess around the mid armhole. So that is the reason for using 1/4 inch. So I'll be marking the same measurements on the other piece of this side. Now I have the 2 pieces marked out, as you can see. So the next step is to join this piece together with this piece. I have 2 pieces for this side and I have 2 pieces for this side. One piece of this will be attached to one piece of this. So, and the positioning is the right side facing the right side. So I'll be turning this to the right side. The right side is facing up now. This is the right side for this piece and this is the right side for this piece. Don't forget, all these 4 pieces are for the back panel. Okay, so there's a side that will match each other perfectly. So this will go for this and this will go for this. Right side facing the right side. Okay, then I will position it like so. Don't forget, this piece was cut out from this side. So I'll pin it all around and I'll make sure, firstly, I'll make sure the edges align like so. I'll pin it, then I will take this downward to the hemline. Then pin it together. So when you are doing this, make sure you take your time. Do not be in a rush. In case you are having an issue of shortage, one side is shorter than the other, all you need to do is rip off your seam, then align it again. Then after stitching, I will have something like this. You can see how beautiful the shape really come out even without stitching. I just pinned this together. You can see what I'm having. So this is for one side of the back panel. Then I'll take the other side as well and pin it the same way I pinned this. Okay, so after joining this together, every process I made on the fabric will be applied on the lining as well. The two are going together, no difference. Okay, there's no difference. I'll be taking one of these, then attach it to one of these. One of these together with this, and one of these together with this. Okay, let me give you a clue in case you don't know. You cannot indicate the dart point easily. Look at this cuff side. This is the part you are joining. The cuff side is what you are joining. This side is the side of the back panel. Okay, and on the other piece, the part you have a curve inward like so. So this is going together with this. If I place this like so, so fortunately this piece is for this piece. You can see what I'm having. I will just mark my seam allowance. So please mark your seam allowance. This will help you to have an accurate stitching, no shortage and no excess. Okay, make sure you mark your seam allowance on this piece, please, not on this piece. Your seam allowance should be on this piece, and when you are stitching, let this be underneath while this is going to be at the top like this. So when you are stitching, you will be flipping this particular piece. Okay, so with this you will not have a shortage. Everything will go well. Okay, you have a perfect stitch, no shortage and no excess. So this is what I'll be doing right now. I'll join this together like so. I will join this together like so. I will join this together like so, and I will join this together like so for the back panel. Then for the front panel, I'll be picking the darts on both pieces. So don't forget, we have lining for the front panel as well. You can see I have 2 pieces for the front panel as well. All these are for the back panels, and I'll put it aside. So lining for the front panel, I'll be picking the darts the same way I picked that on the front panel. I will plot my darts on this piece. I will plot my darts on this piece, and I will pick the darts. Here I have the front panels and the lining, and this side I have the back panel and the lining. So I'll be starting with the front panel. Okay, so this is one piece of the front panel. This is the lower part and this is the upper part. So I will start picking the dart from the lower part point, so which is this point. So here is the 3 inches point. On that point I will not lock my stitches. Okay, so I will just lift my presser foot like so. I will pull out the thread. So then I will cut part of the thread. Okay, so this is what I'll be using in locking my dart. So I will separate the 2 threads like so. Then I will hold each of the threads separately, then knot the thread in order to lock the dart point. Okay, so this will secure that point and the seam will not rip off. Okay, so you can do this 2 or 3 times. So 2 to 3 times is okay. So with this I can trim off the excess I have here. So now I'm done with the construction of the front panel dart, the fabric and the lining, and I'll proceed in constructing the back dart. In joining these 2 pieces together, I will be starting the stitching from the lower part as well. So here is the hemline of the safari suit. Okay, so I will start stitching from the hemline. So after stitching, you can see what I have. So around here I will just place, that is that curved part, I will just notch a little, not much. You can see the seam allowance I have there is not much. Okay, so I will just cut this a little, only the curved part, so that when I'm ironing the seam allowance, that area will be very open. Okay, so when I get to this area, I can open up the seam allowance very well because I have much seam allowance around there. Okay, you can see what I'm having, just only the curved part. So you can see the seam has opened up automatically. Can you see what I have? Even without giving it a press, you can see how it looks. You can see what I have. So I'll be repeating the same process on the lining. So on the lining as well, I'll be notching the curved part. So guys, I've picked the dart on the front and the back panels and all the lining as well. Okay, so the next step is to open the seam allowance and give it a good press so that it will lay flat on the fabric like so. I will open it up, then give it a press. And for the front panel, I will iron the dart allowance on one side. It will lay flat on one side, and I will be repeating the same process on the lining as well. So guys, thanks so much for watching this video to this point. If this video has been helpful to you, kindly give it a thumbs up so that YouTube algorithm can show it to more people who are in need of it. Let's meet in the next episode of this video series, where we shall continue from where we stop. Till we meet in my next video, always do remember, there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs.